Hello, everyone, and welcome back to No Capes, the show where we talk about creator-owned comics with creators who own comics. And with me today is the incredible and inimitable Laura Helsby, hand extraordinaire, punk rock legend. Laura, tell everyone a little bit about your work.
Yeah, guys, I'm Laura. I'm a Manchester-based illustrator and comic book artist from the UK. I like drawing in black and white, mostly inks. Do a little bit of color interiors and covers. I love them. And yeah, I've got a few things coming out this year, and a couple of things I've already done that I'd love to talk to you guys about. And I'm excited to talk about the book.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited for everything that you've got coming out this year. All the previews you've been posting look absolutely sick. So if you're not following Laura on uh, Twitter already or any other socials, definitely jump into the description below and grab that link because you're going to love everything that's being posted. And soon you'll be able to get a quick look at something really, really, really cool because I'm about to commission Laura to do a special No Capes poster. And I cannot wait to see that. It's going to be really sick. You guys helped make it happen by coming and jumping into my subathon for my birthday in January, and now it's about, well, by the time this comes out, it might already be done. You don't know, but it's going to be really, really cool. And today we're talking about Nice House on the Lake, and this book is absolutely incredible. It's by a really, really cool art and creative team of James Tynan IV, Alvaro Martinez Bueno, Jordi Belair, and Andworld Design, and they've all done an absolutely incredible job. This is like a cool sci-fi, post-apocalyptic, alien invasion, survival horror story. That sounds like a lot, but it'll start to make sense as we get through
It's a very
discussing the
specific
book.
genre.
It is. It's like a blend of things that end up being very much hyper specific. All right, so Laura, what do you like about the creative team on this book?
Well, I said James has to be probably. I mean, I don't want to pick. It's hard to pick like your favorite because there's so many different amazing creators and writers and things. But James has to be like the defining, in my opinion, comic book writing voice of like this generation. For me, he's just taken over. It's stunning. But
It
then you
yeah.
combine that with yeah, you combine that with the art, and then we're saying the colors and the letters, and it's like we're saying synergy. It's perfect. It's meant to be. It's just you can't imagine anybody else writing this book, and you can't imagine anybody else drawing it or coloring it or producing the letters for it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like yeah, Alvaro's artwork on this is next level. Like his ink work, his line work is just so precise and so dynamic and engaging. It's just incredible.
I love how it's a precise, but it's also like very soft. It's like these brush tones, and everything looks quite real, but also just slightly not. It's almost like slightly it's almost like a soft glow to it.
Yeah, I know what you
And there's
mean.
sometimes when you have these like layers where like you've got a character in the foreground who obviously mostly meant to be paying attention to, but then there's like an eye in shadow or someone just behind them, and you might not even notice them until you maybe look at the page again. But it's just so beautifully done.
Yeah, 100%. And like the marriage of Alvaro's line work with Geordie's coloring work is just incredible. Like there are a lot of people whose style would suit a book like this, but I can't imagine anybody else's work meshing so perfectly as Geordie and Alvaro did.
Yeah, I think the color is atmospheric, and it's almost got it's almost like it brings out like such an like emotion. But my favorite, almost generally my favorite visually of each book is the first like 2 pages or the first
Mm.
page, skip to, and then the third in that kind of. We'll talk about it probably later a little bit more, but the next part of the post-apocalyptic world, the second, it's almost like 2.0 that we don't even really get to explore yet. Those parts at the very beginning of each book, there's such an explosion of color. It just grabs your attention straight away.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. Like I'll show everyone in a minute so they can see. But yeah, the opening page, which is obviously sort of a look at the future of these characters. You know, we've got the character armed up with a spear and you know, the eye patch and everything, and it's like we don't get to see that happen.
No,
So we don't know
that's what I mean.
when or how that happens.
So we can talk about. I don't know if we're going to talk about it right now or later, but when we get to the very end of the story, we still haven't got there yet.
Yeah, exactly.
We still don't know what that is, and I love that because you kind of almost forget about it whilst you're reading the main bulk of the story, and then the next issue you're like, oh yeah, that this is what eventually is going to happen,
Right,
regardless of what I read.
right. And so I want to take a sec to talk about this, the cover of the character in the lake, and then show everyone the first page, and then we'll give them
Yeah.
their their spoiler warning. But this cover is so striking. I mean, the character looking out of the water, mostly submerged sort of trope has been used a lot on covers. But
Yeah.
in 2022, I saw no less than 5 covers that did it in such a way that I was just absolutely gobsmacked. Like, there's a lot of them that I was just flipped past because I've seen that before. I've seen that before. I've seen that
Yeah.
before. But this one and quite a few others that I've saw in 2022 made me stop and pay attention.
100%. Like I said, all the covers are wonderful, and I can talk about every single one of them. But when the book's coming out, this is what's shown. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, reading it, 100%. Got to read it. I don't even know what it's about. I don't have a clue. I never did. I didn't have a clue until I read it. I
Right?
just knew I had to have it because it's just stunning.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as I saw that cover, I was like, "Oh, what the fuck is this?"
But it perfectly encapsulates the story as well. I mean, or like I said, all of them do. And you've got this gorgeous place. So cover one, the lake, and you can see the house in the background. But
Mm,
then this death and decay, and then all the others where you have the beautiful like a spa, but coming it's got the blood or the guy in the bathtub and everyone on the window. There's dead birds in a few of them, but everything's so serene, or it should be. It should
mm.
be pretty and beautiful, except it's not, and it's
Ex-
just like even without realizing it, it's like planting that seed in your head that something is really wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And as we get to know more about the world, this cover makes more sense.
Yes, which is what I love, because then after you maybe read a couple and you might go back and look at it, or if you've read the whole thing and you go back for a second time, you're like, oh yeah, that's why, that's what it means. And I love that like light bulb moment.
Exactly. And so yeah, here's like one of those pages that you were talking about. It's Nora, isn't it? On this page?
The first page, yeah, I believe it is
Yeah.
Nora.
Yeah, and we've got Nora sitting here, armed up with, knee pads and boots, and I love the pink high tops, by the way.
Awesome. I think all of the character design in any stage of the journey of the book is brilliant. I love
Yeah.
it. I particularly like Ryan's as well.
Yeah. I've got almost the exact same boots in black and red, actually.
Oh really?
So I really appreciate seeing them on the page. But yeah, this look with the blue hair and the band-aid across the nose and the bandages across the face and
Oh,
the
sorry.
yeah,
See, I can't actually see the page, but if you're saying blue hair, that was Ryan. Blue hair's Ryan.
yeah.
Nora,
Oh, Ryan,
black,
is it?
black hair.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember.
Yeah, there
It's
was quite a lot. I mean, like I said, there's at least 11. Aren't there? There's 11 of the people that are in the house. It's actually quite a lot
yeah.
to remember, and all their roles.
Yeah, but yeah, it's such a sick design, and there's this orange glow behind her, and like I don't know if that means something's on fire, or if that's supposed to be the sunrise, or what's
I mean,
happening.
that's the thing, I suppose. We don't get to know, but for me, at least, when I'm reading it, those beginning pages, it definitely gives me fire. It's apocalyptic. I mean,
Yeah,
in that time, in reading the first one, we don't know what it means. It's just the first page you're opening up, but to me, that's post-apocalyptic, like nuclear fire.
yeah. So I get that vibe, but then okay, so right now here we go. If you haven't read the book and you care about spoilers, it's time to leave, go read the book, and then come back and watch the rest of this. Because we're going to start getting into spoiler territory very quickly because we're both really excited about this book. But you can see how gorgeous the art is, and it like this first page is a real hook. Go read the book, come back. There's a link in the description below so you can go get it. And then yeah, come back and see what we've got to say and see if you agree or what thoughts you might have and drop them in the comments. But if you care about spoilers, now's the time to block your ears and close the window. Okay. So go on. Go on. You're still there,
Spoiler.
go. Spoiler time. Okay, so as we know, it's aliens.
Yes,
So
it's
the other
aliens.
vibe that I get here could be that is, the aliens coming to check on them.
Okay, so you're thinking like at the end of the whole thing, that's what this is now. This
It
is
could
like
be,
them coming.
like, yeah, there could be some of the aliens have come and tried to overrun them and they've been fighting them off. And that glow could be from one of the ships.
Oh, I mean, oh, it's definitely. Oh, it might be from the ships. That's good. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
because
because we don't. The great thing about the aliens themselves, we don't actually know what they are. Like, we
yeah,
don't really know. We've seen this fleshy, massive shape.
yeah, exactly. Like, do they have
But
ships? Are they other dimensional?
are they just everywhere? Are they just there? That just that glow, maybe.
Mm,
Well, that's a good point because the last thing we really read in the end of the book was that. What did Walter say? He basically said like they don't even know they have to fight for it yet. They've just managed to get this
yeah,
equilibrium.
yeah, exactly.
They're gonna have to fight for it, and that's obviously what we're seeing in these like first 2-3 pages in each book.
Yeah,
I really can't wait
exactly.
to find out what that is because like it's post-apocalyptic in a way we've never seen before. The whole book, them being in the house.
Yeah,
But
like
if they do a book two, which I assume they will, that'll be like what we're more used to with the, like I said, the spear and the
yeah,
bandages and stuff, and actually fighting.
yep. It's like, is it this is an then are they fighting another bubble? You know, that's come to their bubble?
Yeah,
Are they fighting against the aliens? Like, we don't know. We don't get to find out yet.
that's really interesting. I didn't think about that as well because, of course, said Walter said there was a bubble, another control group, another experiment, but
Yeah,
maybe other
he said
humans.
he said like this was his, but they weren't the only ones. So they were expendable if they didn't prove themselves.
I mean, it would also make logical sense for them potentially to have to like fight each other because for whatever reason, these aliens, these were the chosen few to survive because they were worthy, they had merit to do so. So if they were to battle or to have to fight or try and whoever survived would then surely be even more so. They would
Yep,
have the
exactly.
right to survive.
Exactly. So, like, I'm really curious about if that's what that is. Who are they fighting against? We know they're probably going to have to fight the aliens at some point, but that doesn't
In
mean
some
that's
way,
who.
but it's never going to be how we think.
Yeah,
Is it
exactly.
because of the way James has written this? It's probably, I don't know, the aliens, the masters, the whatever, they're going, I assume they're going to find out that they killed Walter or that they've taken control in some way. That's what they'll find out, and then what, they're going to be pissed off.
Yeah.
And they're going to try and they're going to try and mess with them. But I don't know. Does that mean like just turning off the simulation and in a way, and that makes it go all to hell, and that's why they're surviving
Right.
in that way?
Yeah. Right. And then, like, we've got this. We're introduced to these characters. I think it's Ryan and Walter. Where yeah, they're just at a bar talking, having snacks and drinking, and then
Yeah.
there's that wide panel where we can see all the people in one side, and then in the other side we can see all the devastation as it transitions,
Yes.
and it's like, okay, setting the tone right up. So it's like
I
the
think so. I was just gonna say like that. It's not this panel, but you said the devastation again. We go back to the art, the way that they visualize. Not well, there's so many things I want to say now, but the way they visualize the actual apocalyptic event is stunning.
mm,
Again, it's like something that's so hard to actually comprehend, but they've made it there on the page.
yeah, and then that's it. Like, we never really get to find out exactly how this apocalypse happens either. Like, is it a physical war where the aliens land and wage war on the people? Is it a biochemical thing, or do they just have something else that they can just unleash devastation across the world? We don't know. We see the
No, I
end
loved.
result.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we don't know how it starts. I do. I love the storytelling device though of using that whole double page spread of social media
Mm,
pages flicks and scrolling and little bits that are cut off and things, but it's because it feels that it's so colloquial oftentimes when people write how people text or how they tweet. It's so it's so obviously staged, but these type of things that the people were writing in those tweets or whatever they were in their social media messages, they felt really really real,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
and it felt pretty scary. It's just a comic, but it genuinely does feel a little bit scary.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, yeah, it's unsettling. And then yeah, we've got Ryan and Nora meeting outside the nice house,
Yeah.
and yeah,
I think that's
it's
a brilliant intro because you said Nora's so standoffish.
mm,
I mean, she is throughout pretty much the whole thing, and it makes sense as she goes. She goes to why, but she's probably I like Ryan, but she's probably my favorite character, Nora, aside from Walter, because the idea that all along, because obviously Walter can kind of like mind wipe after he's revealed himself to his
mm-hmm,
friends because he got so caught up and he wanted to show them, and then of course they were like scared as fuck. So then he said forget, and they just forget. He's done that several times. So I mean, if I think the thing is with Nora is he's done that to them. I think it was the other artist. Is it Reg? I think it was Reg.
yeah,
He did it
yeah,
with Reg.
Yeah,
where
Reg is the
he basically
artist.
got them. He got them to design their world. He got them to design this experiment or this bubble that they're in, and then made them forget it.
Yes, that's right. And yeah, we didn't find that out till a ways in that actually
No.
no. Like this looks how it does and suits their tastes so much and feels so comfortable to them because yeah, they designed it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they didn't. They are the architects of their own jail cell,
Yeah,
but they
and
can't break out because
yeah.
they've forgotten that they ever did it. But Nora's intelligence to know that she basically plans her own action. She knows that if you tell me this, I'll do this. If you give me the option to try and prove you wrong, Walter, then I'm going to do it because I'm almost egotistical enough to want to do that, and I know
Yeah,
myself,
exactly.
and she does.
Yeah. Yeah, she does. She does eventually sort of like help him manage everyone.
Yeah, she knows everyone and herself that well.
Yeah. And yeah, it's so sinister, the whole thing.
I think one of my favorite parts about it as well is it's sinister as crick. And at the first, you pretty much hate Walter like the rest of them do at the point of they found out about it because he's trapped them there. His race have killed pretty much every single living thing on the planet. You pretty much hate it, but as it goes on, you kind of get this incredible empathy and or sympathy for him. I mean,
Mm.
I think that's why Walter's one of my favorite because by the end, let's say if you were part of a race, which I suppose you could say, if you're part of a race that did something that you didn't agree with, but you had no control over, but what you did have control over was trying to protect the people that you actually loved,
Yeah,
would you
exactly.
not? Like, would you not do everything you could to protect those people and try and even sneak in another one, which he did? He obviously. It's an impossible decision to make
Yeah.
and to try and rationalize that, but he just wants them to be safe.
Right?
Really.
Yeah, and that's it. Like it's very sinister, but also so misguided. And like
Yeah.
one of the things I really appreciate is that it's contemporary. I've noticed a lot of comics steering clear of acknowledging the events of the last 3 years. And while like yes, I get it, you want to try to have something that is always relevant and isn't going to be
Yeah,
aged out of
transcends
relevancy,
time.
but also it's just nice to see. I've seen a few comics that have done it, and it is nice to see some comics actually acknowledging what the fuck is going on and has happened to us right now.
Yeah, I think
And
isn't Ryan shows up with the mask and then Nora does a
yeah, Nora
temperature
takes
check.
the temperature and make sure that she's not sick before she comes into the house. And yeah, it's like it's nice to see that acknowledged. And like
It's the most that they really show of it as well, but it's not like it's just everywhere. It's not plastered everywhere. It's
no,
just this day-to-day stuff.
yeah, exactly. It's like this is what was happening at this time. And I feel like it's not going to age this comic out of relevancy, but it is going to let people know, like it's a cue for what time period this is set in. And
Yes.
it's also yeah, it's just an acknowledgement of what we all have been going through. And I really, really appreciated that. It was really refreshing when I read this book and saw that in the first couple of pages.
Yeah, I agree. I think I thought the same thing, especially on the reread. When I was reading it recently.
Yeah, like I don't expect I don't even necessarily want every comic
No.
to do it, but it is nice to see some people going, yeah, this is the thing that happened and is happening currently.
Especially in a book, I suppose, that is about such an extreme event anyway. It's
Exactly.
obviously been nothing literally similar, but it's a worldwide event. It's a worldwide event. There's a lot of damage. There's a lot of loss of life, and it's just that teeny little connection.
Exactly. And that was really cool. And then we're immediately introduced to the rest of the cast. I'm gonna skip the double page spread into when we meet Reg and his partner. So we've got what about it? Read that one? I can't read it because it's so
Without the
small.
page, that'd be great for you.
Yeah, but they've all got their own code names that Walter has given them.
Yeah, so you've got I can't remember the moment it said the reporter, the writer, the artist, the doctor. You've got an actor.
Yeah,
There's a person of faith, and that ends up being. I mean, he just says it. He provides it in this little. It's like a guise, so that
yeah,
none of the participants, because they just think it's a holiday at first, and when none of the participants know who the others are, it's like a game. But of course, as I said, he had to pick one of each to prove to his like masters or his superiors that these are people that deserve to survive and need one of each.
Exactly. And it doesn't like it's cool. Like they're all friends and everything like that, but it also like it doesn't take long for them to start getting at each other.
No, it doesn't. And I mean, I imagine that's probably what it probably could be like, regardless of the apocalyptic event happening. If you
Yeah,
put that many people in
you
a small isolated place, you get conflict.
right? Yeah, everyone's stuck in a place like this, unable to leave, and they've all got these complicated histories.
Oh yeah, and they're all intertwined really, mostly apart from Ryan. Like Ryan was like the odd one out. Everyone is
Yeah,
pretty much high school, college, or close, and they all know each other, and they're all in little clicky bits, so they're all wires are crossed everywhere, and everybody knows somebody else. Where Ryan is like, I think there's a scene, and I don't think it's the first page. Yes, it is. Yes, it is the first issue because they're all having like steaks on the barbecue and stuff when Walter
yes,
comes in, and Ryan wants, I can't remember if she wants to talk to Walter or she's just overwhelmed, but she's just alone. Nobody else is talking to her. She's just that one. She's the odd one out, which I guess is a bit of foreshadowing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's kind of isolated, sitting off to the side by herself, and then she manages to get some signal. Let me pull this up on the double page spread. She manages to get some signal, and like you said, like there's that social media blast of everything burning.
It's probably it's unique. I don't think I've ever seen a comic book page that's quite like
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Like it was a really cool way to get it across.
it. Really got, I think it got you very much in the mindset because you're quickly going from each social media bit to the next. You're like, oh this, and then oh my god, everything's burning, and oh, and my mom, I need to talk to my mom, and like this and that, and it's almost like you're like frantically scrolling like she is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. She starts doom scrolling and like
Yeah.
it would be terrifying to have that experience.
Yeah, so with the rest of the group found out, like, it's bad enough with that, but then you start to think about it because I mean, okay, as a reader, I think the first thought for me was at least, well, okay, it's terrible, but you're safe because that's what I'm reading. I don't, I'm not in it. But when they start to think, well, oh god, what about my family? Like, you forget, like, these aren't just intro characters. They have families themselves. They have kids or brothers or moms and dads or just other friends. It's not
Yeah.
all in this little world. And then people like listening to voicemails or they're getting texts off their mom. And it's also so graphic. I can't remember if it was in that social media like double page spread. I think it was, where one guy was saying like he could pull his skin off in sheets, but it wasn't
Yeah.
even hurting, like pudding. And it's like that is so graphic and so physical. I can kind of feel it. You can
Yeah.
imagine actually that it's just falling off and it's just horrible.
Right? Like that, yeah, that would be terrifying. And yeah, like knowing that your friends and loved ones are potentially going through that.
Whilst you're stuck there in this perfect little house on the lake.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's idyllic. It's like a billionaire's dream.
Yeah, and it's tailor-made for them. And the survivor's guilt that they would be experiencing.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? That's probably what I have to think. That's the reason why the majority of the time, when they can remember it, that they hate Walter. I
Yeah.
think Laura says it so. You didn't give anyone the choice, and then he asked, well, would you prefer to be out there with them? And she said, well, I'm not going to answer because you're not going to let me choose anyway. It
Right?
doesn't matter, but the fact that they didn't get that choice to be there with them and die with them, or just here and know that they died.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like their agency was completely removed. So, yeah, it would be just devastating to realize that. Like, not only are you safe and warm and cozy and alive, and everyone you've ever loved is not, but like, you didn't even get a choice in that matter.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's when the rifts are so about the conflict. That's when some of that starts to rise in the group in the house as well, because you get some people who naturally, or because of Walter, want to just make breakfast and they want to do the routine. They want to watch a film. They want to go on the boat. They want to do this. Whereas the others like, no, I want to scale. I want to map out the perimeter of where we are, and I want to see and define that they can't go any further. The people who want to push the limits, and then there's people who are happy to just be where they are. They're grateful for where they are, and the clashing of those is like, well, don't you even care?
Yeah, right. Yep. And this is where we just kind of get our first good look at Walter too, when Nora attacks him with the fire hook.
That, I think, when I saw it, I was like, I actually had to put the book down for a minute. I was like, what? Because seeing it go right through him and the way that it's drawn,
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, how when James or whoever wrote the script, when James wrote the script and there was talking and like say, right, this is what I want you to do. In my head, like, how do you manage to put that on a page?
Yeah, right.
I want you to put a crowbar through them and then make them morph into several different like versions of themselves in the air, like liquid.
Right.
But it works, and it looks so, it looks so like tangible, like it looks real.
Yeah, just have to imagine that at some point there was a like, think like the T-1000, but fleshy.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, liquid metal, liquid flesh, I
Yeah,
guess, is what it looks like. But it also looks like smoke as well. Like,
yeah.
but I look at other points when Walter appears, whether it's through his own decision to show himself, and his face is just slightly coming apart, and his mouth is a bit over here, and he's got some glasses up here and things.
Yeah, exactly. Even
It,
when Walter shows his true form, he still looks like a distorted human. So I get the feeling that that's not his true form. It's just like, here
yeah,
is a version of the reality of what I am.
yeah. Well, we see. I think it was Nora, but when she was younger, I'm pretty sure when they're having a sleepover in another issue, and we see she comes downstairs, and said, "Oh, why aren't you watching the movie, man?" And Walter's with his parents,
Yeah,
and Walter looks human-ish, but the parents are even less human. They're just like spirals of look like flesh.
yeah,
They're not. There's no faces there at the time, and that's the closest we get to knowing what they might look like. The
yeah.
closest,
I
and even
reckon
then,
so. I mean, if the team has any sketches of their true form and wants to share out, I know my inbox is always open.
I'd love to see. I can't imagine. I mean, but then that's the point again. Or maybe I don't want to see. Maybe I
True.
don't, because I said there's nothing better than what's in here really,
Yes,
and the
true.
fact that you get all this spirally, smoky liquidiness, and that's pretty much it.
It's all about the
It's
monsters
enough.
you don't see.
Exactly, it's enough to ground you, and you know that this is what it is. But your imagination can then run wild with what maybe they actually transform into, if they transform into anything. They're just ethereal. We can't
Yeah,
perceive it. Walter says himself.
right. And that's the thing. We don't know if they actually have a true corporeal form, or if that's something that they can assume in order to infiltrate our world. I don't know.
You
And
can't. It's like so Walter says, like the technology, you know, or when he's walking through like one of the voids, like almost like a little wormhole to get from one house to the other. You know, it's like it's used. I think it's Nora. It's like it's empty. It's like, well, it's not. You just can't see it. You know, where I'm, you just can't see it. You can't perceive what's here, and it's the same with them. Really, there's no way to draw something that we have no idea what exists. So don't.
that's true.
It's just black, and then
That's true. And that's my curiosity as well. Is like, I want to know if they're extra dimensional or extraterrestrial.
that's a good point.
I don't know. I mean, we know they're not of this world, but we don't know if they're not of this plane or just not of this planet.
A way to be both, maybe.
Mm.
I feel that there's a dimensional like tone in there because of like, you know, them not being fully visible.
Yeah, that's what the vibe that I get, that maybe they're extra dimensional, and like the very chthonic, sort of utterly inhuman cosmic horror
Yes.
vibes of it all.
Cosmic horror, that's a great one.
Yeah, and then I've got this cover up now for people to see, the one you were talking about before, of old mate in the bathtub, but then there's all the people like smashing
Oh,
against the window.
it's terrifying. It's terrifying. I also like how in each one it seems like this is just very bright exposed like flash, almost like someone's taking it with the camera. It looks like there's this big flash on the picture, and like it raises so many questions. I mean, obviously, said these scenes that don't necessarily happen; they don't necessarily actually occur. It's just like a visual taste of of an emotional point, and it makes you put the two and two together of the very pretty place with the very horrible thing, and that's
Yeah,
all that maybe it's meant to do. But that one was one of my favorites, the guy in the bathtub with the guys banging on the window, because it's so poignant to the story. I mean, everybody outside, if you know, if they weren't dead, or if they actually knew what was happening when there was this place, they would be. It's I think, you know, you get it in almost every like zombie film where the survivors
yeah,
want to get in, everybody wants to get in, and it's that panic. But there's none of that really in the book because they're
no,
already gone.
yeah, because they're already gone, and if they're not, they don't know this place exists.
It might not even be on Earth. It probably isn't on Earth.
Yeah, yeah, but that's my concern, is like they could be just, Galactus, not Galactus, Brainiac style, scooped up in a little dome.
Probably. I mean, Walter said at one point, like, you know, I think they said, "Is there anything left?" And he said, "There's not much, and eventually there won't be anything." Essentially, is what he said. There's, you know, at one point, it's not going to be anything left. So I'm pretty sure that they're not on Earth anymore.
Yeah, right.
Not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, and then we get another future look at one of them. I can't remember who this is. Who's the redhead again? Or the
The redhead.
blonde, sort of dirty blonde, reddish haired guy?
Hey, oh, wait, is it Rick?
Yeah, I think that's the one, Rick. He's the really angry one that
Yes, it's probably Rick. He's the one with the who is. I mean, again, everybody's already been warned about spoilers, but is it the one who shoots his wife?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
I think so, yeah. And here he's, gone like full on prepper. He's got the camo pants and a big leather armored vest on, and suddenly he's got tattoos all the way down. And I mean, who knows how long they've been in this place? Of course he's had time to get those tattoos.
yeah. I mean, that's an interesting point. I mean, the healing factor and stuff. I mean, someone couldn't do acupuncture, but they could do tattoos. But then again, if they've been
If
controlling
they've
their own levels after
Yeah,
the
if they've got the
point of the story,
controls,
you
they
would do
could
it.
turn it
I
off
mean,
long
that would
enough.
be my priority.
Yeah.
Turn down the healing just to get some tattoos, and I'll turn it back up again.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's covered in them. Like he didn't have them when he arrived.
That's a good point. No, I never noticed that. I didn't
Yeah.
notice that. That's a really interesting thing.
Yeah, he's got full sleeves and you can even see some across his collarbone.
There's just so much story
Yeah.
that it's hinting at, and
Yeah.
even without that, like I said, the supposed this very traditional post-apocalyptic landscape we get, as opposed to what the majority of the story is about, and then it's just not talked about.
Right?
It's referenced
Yeah.
a bit at the end, but it's not
Yeah.
talked about. It's just here they are. I knew Walter when I was a kid, but look, and they're just like, oh, that one. I think there's one that I can't remember which issue it is, and it's heartbreaking because it's the one where it starts off instead of like an actual preview scene or a previous scene, Walter, like all the others do, of a social interaction. It's like a camcorder footage of his birthday party, and then
Mm.
eventually it just goes black, and it's the guy holding the phone, and it's dead, but it's crack on the screen, and that's it. There's no more ordering new phones. There's no, you can't order a charger. There's nowhere to charge it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's gone. That's it. That's the last of it. So at this point, whenever we get to this point in the volume 2, there is no, there's no house anymore. They're all living in like these little tree housey things, or they're living in like the decaying or wrecked
Yeah, right? Like we've got old
debris
mate.
of the old places.
Yeah. We've got old mate here just like sitting in the forest surrounded by those statues and that same orange glow playing the
Yeah.
piano.
Yes, there's the piano just randomly there.
Yeah, I mean,
But
he's
that
all,
was Rick's thing. He always played music. He said he played music to think.
yeah. And yeah, he's got the long hair and the beard. And so like I want to know what happens. And like I don't
Can't wait
actually
to know.
know. Like James Alvaro, like everyone on the team, like, is there going to be more?
Well, that's the thing, is obviously, so when again I was reading, when you look at the book, there's 10 little icons, like there are 10 people, and there's only meant to be 10, but really there's 11. But at
Mm.
the end of issue 11, it's said to be concluded, so you think that's the end. But on issue 12, it then says, what is the word it says? I can't remember what
End
it
of
said. It
book
said
one
like
or something?
end of cycle 1.
Yeah, that's the one.
Cycle 1. So there's cycle 2. So there's something. There's definitely an intention to do
Yeah.
something else, whether it gets fulfilled, but it should do, because it was absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I want to see. I want to see what happens. I want to know how we get from piano playing, happy go lucky party boy to this.
Piano playing in in
Yeah,
flames.
yeah, this hard ass tattooed, body armored piano playing guy by himself.
I can't wait, because you have. I love I can't get this word out today. I love post-apocalyptic stories. They're some of my favorite, like, horror / thriller action genres. It's brilliant. I love to envision what the world would look like if there really wasn't a world. I think it's brilliant to try and make that up, and some great films do it. And this book does it really in a way I've never seen before, with the bulk of it being in this house, and being able to make like the studio and the sauna spa place and the gorgeous landscape that it inhabits. It does it mostly it's more like it's in your head of the apocalyptic world.
Yeah.
But then it's going to transcend into book, hopefully into volume or cycle 2, with a more traditional version of a post-apocalyptic world. And I love that. It gave you something completely different,
Yeah.
and then it subverts that by giving maybe what you would have originally expected, but in a way that you'd never expect.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I love how I've kind of forgotten this happened but as I'm going through here, I love how often we
Yeah.
see Walt just popping up and revealing himself to the participants and asking for their help.
Yeah, exactly. You said they built this essentially.
Yeah,
So many of them, without their input, this wouldn't have existed.
exactly.
And
Because
that
we,
if to remember that all at the end as well must be torture.
mm, exactly. And we've got this scene here. I can't show everyone because it's on the opposite side of the page, and this comic viewer is not great. But it's that scene where Walt reveals himself to Rick as Rick's, brushing his teeth. And
Oh
we've
yeah.
got we've got human Walt standing there, but in the mirror we can see, you know, mutant fungus flesh spore Walt.
Well, that's the thing as well. It's the writing, the page composition, the art, but the way that that's a team. Or choose that's the team. They use the environment to visualize Walter is spectacular. There's
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite parts. I think was in the last issue. Which we'll get to, but he was drinking and there's a bottle of beer on the table and it was just in front of half of his face, and because of the warping of the beer, his face was warped, just like a person would be.
Yeah.
But it's just that's what he is in that like warpy world. Another, this is why I was talking about dimensional thing. It's something you can't usually see, but because of the concave of the glass, you
Yeah,
can.
exactly. Yep. And then we've got that scene of Ryan trying to figure out the symbols.
Ah, yes.
Yeah,
She's
she's trying.
drawing on the. I like that because they had the day planned out as well in that point.
Yeah.
All the activities.
Yeah, exactly. And she's trying to figure out what these symbols mean and how they're connected. And, obviously each of them corresponds to one of them somehow, but why? What does the symbol actually stand for and why is it connected to that person?
And why is it only them? I mean, I said they all know that they like that they knew Walter, but I said why only them? Because at that at which point did they realize when all this is happening? Do they question actually why them? I mean, they forget about it, they remember about it, they forget, they remember, but
Right?
again, survivor guilt thing. I mean, what you maybe okay? Well, Walter picked you, but he could have picked anyone. I think
Yeah.
there's a point actually in one of the issues where Walter in one of the flashbacks is like waiting outside the bar for somebody's birthday in the rain. He's holding an umbrella and he's saying he gets so mad at people when they disappoint him because he's like, I would have picked you over somebody else, and you're just gonna show me who you really are. You've done something bad, whether you just lied to me or been mean. It's like I would have given you a place over Rick, for
Yeah,
example. I would have put them out. They could be and it's like the anger because of how much he cares about the people that he is saving.
exactly. And coming to realize it now as well is I think these symbols are the controls.
They are, or at least they are. When we see it at the end, we see
Yeah.
the interface. That I think it was Nora designed the interface.
Yeah, I think so.
She sketched out the drawings. Um, their symbol is on the interface that corresponds to their controls, and everything is done in that very simplistic way. And I don't know if that is because Nora designed it that way, or if this is the race and the way that they visualize things. We don't really know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting because there are a couple of human symbols on here. We've got the percentage and the clock.
Yeah.
And the top right symbol looks like a dial because it's four fingers and a thumb spacing of those little dots.
Yeah,
And if
that's
I
the art
remember
one, right?
rightly,
This
I
one
see
because it's like a
Nora.
paint palette.
Yeah, yeah. And if I remember rightly, I see Nora with her hand on a glowing disc like that, fiddling with the controls.
Yeah.
So I think that one is the dial, and then the rest correspond to the various things that can be controlled. So,
Yeah, the different. I can't remember the visual for each one, but I also think they are literally said. So you've got the artist and the dots, the four and the one. It looks like a paint palette, and then there's like for the mathematician. I think there's the divide, and I think Nora did this. I think she designed those what they look like, and I don't know why specifically they made them look so simple. I don't know if it was just because that was like a game that maybe Walter was playing. Like, if this had happened, what would you do? How would you draw it?
yeah,
Because that's what it started with Ryan. It was like they were sitting in the bar at the start of the first book, and it was like, well, how would you end the world? And it starts out as a game.
exactly. But he's fishing.
Yeah, fishing for ideas. he's copywriting or stealing. He's theft.
He's he's like a DM that doesn't want to write the story himself.
Yes, well there you go. Exactly. need somebody else to do it, and then I'll just memory wipe you, and then I'll say it's mine.
Oh yeah, and then there's the I'm gonna pull over the double page spread for this. Then we get that actual glimpse of the outside world and like people melting and burning and like
Is this where they figure out if you touch the statue that you can see what's happening where you are
yeah,
from?
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like there's two beings here that are kind of like Walter. But it's not clear if they're actually aliens or if that's a result of
If they're
whatever
people melting,
devastation is happening and it's somebody being turned
ripped
into that.
apart.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
it's not clear.
I saw that the second read through, and I think the first time I just assumed that they were burning and melting, and that's just the artistic portrayal. But the second time I was thinking, well, that actually does look a lot like Walter.
Yeah, there's the three mouths on the one that's right up near the screen,
Yeah,
and then
I mean,
yeah,
it could
multiple
be, it could
faces.
be.
Yeah, so they could be some of the aliens like supervising the devastation
Essentially, maybe. I mean, that doesn't surprise me.
and messing
I
with the
think an interesting
people.
point. The interesting thing I would think is like, and I think it's possible we were explained, but they go to touch the statue. Somebody put the statue there. Everything is designed. Now, was that Reg when he designed it? Because he said he left breadcrumbs for
Mm,
himself once he figured out what was happening. He left breadcrumbs. Was this one of the breadcrumbs? The idea that, well, if I give us away eventually, if we stumble upon it and touch it or something, we figure out that this is happening. Maybe that's one of the things. It was a way to get him to remember something.
yeah, yeah, could
Because
be.
otherwise, why would you put it there? You would,
Yeah,
if Walter was actually making this perfect place, there's no reason to put as magic stone where if you touched it, you'd watch your parents like feel like you're on a nice getaway.
yeah, exactly. So, and that's what I mean. That must be a hint at that they're leaving
Yeah,
clues for themselves.
yeah. Or I said, Reg designed the whole piece. When we talk about the bubbles, he designed the whole, I think, island really. And then when it says when Walter discovered that Reg was leaving breadcrumbs, we figured it out. He had to keep him away from the rest of the group, and that's when
Yeah,
Ryan came into it. He needed somebody else, and needed somebody else quick, and that's why Ryan is so isolated because Ryan doesn't fit. Ryan doesn't really make sense.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I got this cover that you were talking about earlier up again now too. Actually, the one with the birds.
I mean, birds are used so often in like horror and thriller and like Hitchcock, and the idea of them flying against windows or just dropping to the floor when something is really wrong and you know it's wrong because the animals know it's wrong,
Yeah,
or they're going against their or not human instinct, but they're going against their actual basic animal instincts and just killing themselves.
yeah, exactly. Who's the photographer again? I've forgotten the name.
Well, what the photographer? Sorry.
Yeah,
Do you mean the I can't remember. Sorry, man.
yeah. We've got them in the third book. They're the one that's in that first page, and yeah, again, they're all body armored up and in kind of a like one of those really tight fitted environmental hoods, and
Yeah.
they're paddling through the toxic lake.
It's a toxic lake. I mean, what? I mean, so again, did the aliens or the dimensional beings, did they intentionally just destroy this plane, this like dome, this bubble that they're in? Is it the natural decay? Was this always going to happen? Is it due to like them fighting? But the fact that it's toxic, it definitely looks it.
Yeah, it looks at least looks it because like the vegetation that we can see all looks dead.
Well, I mean, there's another thing. When I can't remember which group member it was, it could be the photographer himself. When there's a guy that goes out and he touches the wall that's there, this invisible wall. He grabs a stick and he starts pulling it across the whole wall and he maps out the place.
Mm,
Then he goes out again. He borrows his partner's boots and he goes out and he writes down everything he sees and draws some things. And there's a page where you see it and it's like no wildlife question mark. Never mind birds, but it says no wildlife. So in their little bubble, there aren't any mammals.
mm.
There aren't any bears or deer or wherever. But in one of the first couple pages in one of the issues, I think it's the acupuncturist guy.
Oh
He's sat
yeah.
in a spa and then he walks up and he leaves and there's a carcass of like a deer or a wolf or something.
Mm.
So wherever they are now, it might be a completely different place. I mean, it doesn't look like it because of the piano, but wherever they are now, something's changed because there weren't animals and now there are.
Maybe they brought down the walls.
Maybe they dropped something else in.
Yeah. Or maybe they
Like,
changed the controls and brought creatures in
just
with
turn them
whatever.
on.
Yeah.
I suppose it could be like that. I can't remember which one it was. One of the Hunger Games when they start, they have all um, those like hologram models, and they literally just like bring up and expand like a big monster, and I'll just drop you in.
Yeah.
They can just decide to put animals in. Or maybe they decided that as a group. Maybe,
Yeah.
because they can control it now, maybe they just decided that, hey, we want actual like living beings here as well as us.
Right? Like, yeah, it still remains to be seen, and I'm so curious about it. I just love how dynamic the colors are throughout the entire book. Like, everyone's at least trying to pretend like everything's fine and life is going on, but there's just this constant, like, it's so bright and engaging and dynamic, but there's also this constant like tone to everything. Like the
Mm.
texture and the grit in the art
Yeah, there's
belies
a lot.
the truth of everything.
It's subtextual. I mean, I said that when you're in the bulk of the book and you're looking at the house and or wherever they are, if they're in the studio or if they're in the second place, so there's like a grey wash sometimes, and everything just feels strained. It doesn't. It's like the birds. Something feels wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Something feels wrong.
Yeah, I'm looking at the panel where they're making eggs and breakfast and stuff, and there's the bright colors, there's the pink shirt and everything, but there's this grainy texture over everything that, like, if it wasn't there, this scene wouldn't feel sinister.
It wouldn't, but then again, I mean, you also just have the situational point. Like the world's just ended, and you want bagels. I mean, and it's fine because everybody would handle something that absolutely maddening differently. But it is that question of like the world is just ending. Your parents have like melted, and your concern is that these bagels are really nice, or you want eggs, or
Yeah,
like the priorities of the different people. But it's human, and I think that's another of the appeal because it is. Some people probably would act that way either through shock or just that's just their
yeah,
motivation. They just want breakfast.
yeah. I mean, that's how they get through the day. The mystery just continues to both unravel, but also just stretch out beyond
Yeah, it
Ken.
unravels and then ravels up some more.
Yeah. So we find out so much more, but then it's revealed, like, the more we know, the more we realize we don't know.
Exactly that, yeah. But I think I said it to you. When after I read the whole thing, I realized that everything kind of played out to a point after, like, say, halfway through. I had an idea of what may or may not happen,
Yeah.
and everything both played out exactly kind of how I thought, and also not at all.
Yeah,
Like
right?
at the end, Walter giving them this choice, and he said, "I know what you're probably going to pick, but here's like three options, and one of them involves killing me." And then Nor, I think Ryan gets to tell the group that this is what he said, and they all come together and they decide that yes, we're going to pick option three. We're going to kill him because if we can control it, then at least he's not here anymore. We can have some sort of equilibrium. And then Nora is talking to Walter and he's like, "Do you remember how to work the controls?" Like he said. And then there's a point where Nora's in the foreground and Reggie's in the background and he's looking at it and it's it just makes you question it for a second because Nora
Yeah.
pauses, like something else she's not saying,
Right?
which now we know is just like it's her knowing the eventual plan, which is that thing of like, well, I know something isn't working. Maybe she's not going to shoot him, and then she does, and you're like, oh shit, she really did. Okay, I was wrong.
Yeah, and then we find out that
It can
yeah. And that blew me away right at the end, like, when they're like, "Oh, he's not dead."
Yeah, originally when it was about shooting him or not, that first bit when she was like when I think Reg put his hand and said, just stop fighting, and Walter let it happen. I was like, no, she's probably not gonna shoot him or he's gonna like do something or it's not gonna work. And then the next page just like instant, it's blam, it's dead, it's shot, he's
Yeah.
dead, he's done. And then another couple pages is like, oh wait, no, I was right, he isn't dead. So I didn't think they were gonna kill him, but it didn't happen the way I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, as far as they're aware, they did.
Yes, except for Nora.
Mhm.
She's like the mastermind. She hates him the whole way through for what he's done, except she's the only one really who helped make it all happen
Yeah,
because
and
it happened that way. It's the only way that anyone would be able to keep living this way, to keep
yeah,
them all
exactly.
alive, which is really the point.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
the only way they'll survive is through this.
somebody has to deceive, and originally that's Walter, and then that really becomes Nora.
Mhm.
And it's kind of that's the sucky part because again everyone hates Walter, even though even we do a little bit, but I suppose we can sympathize or empathize. What would you do? And Nora hates Walter, but then Nora has to become that person essentially herself.
Yeah,
she knows now.
exactly.
And I wonder if anybody else will find out about that, or if that just gets, if we just move on from that point.
Here's hoping for cycle 2.
I'm sure they're gonna do cycle 2. They've got to. It's so good. I can't see if they can't make this a second volume. I mean, what can you make a second volume of?
Well, yeah, there is that. Okay, so we're approaching the end of the hour now. So let's take a minute to talk about what you've got going on. So,
Cool.
fair warning to everyone, we've recorded this nice and early in the year. I'm not sure when you're seeing this right now. So, what have you got coming out just this year that you can talk about?
This year, well, it's quite funny because there's I do loads of stuff, and it's like constantly, and I'm posting like updates like every day, and like whips, work in progress, and people can see them, and I'm like, I can't talk about this, can't do this, and it
Yeah.
comes to the end of the year, like what actually do I have, like, because so much is always like in fruition, it's coming out, but this year I do have my first like diamond distributed published thing that can be in comic book shops, which is really cool. The idea that I could actually go into a comic book shop and it might be on a shelf, or it has the potential to be on a shelf, is really cool. So that's coming this year, and that's going to be the Claims Adjuster. It's going to come out from
Yes.
Devil Dew Publishing, and
I'm
I'm
going to be
really
asking my
excited.
local for that.
Thank you very much. And that's with Chuck Statley and Neil Van Antwerp, and there's like a big bunch of names. There's Leslie Atlanski is doing the colours, and she's fantastic. It's a really interesting way of working because for me, this is my first, like, I've only the most I've done is one issue before this, the most I've drawn. So this is 5 issues, and we're almost at the end of issue 2 now. I am, at least as far as inks, and it's the most I've done. And the way that we're working, it's really great because Neil, is the co-creator of the story. Him and Chuck came up with it together, and Neil does these really rough layouts.
Yep.
Of where they want the story to go, and then I pencil on top of that, and I ink on top of that, and it not only it saves me like so much time, but I'm learning so much from Neil, because Neil is absolutely superb, and there's like the perspective, the composition of the panels, not just the composition within the panels, but of the panels themselves. The way that he lays out pages is in things I would never have thought to do. And when I'm doing pages that I am laying out myself now for something else, I can see the influence, which is really great, because now, and I am taking things on board. It's what I want from the process. But that is let's see, I've got the actual list here. The issue 1 is going to be solicited in March and to market in May. So that's where we're at, at least for issue 1. I have the whole thing, but that's for issue 1. And we're gonna have a trade paperback to market in December, hopefully, for the whole thing as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that.
I also have I think it's in the previews very soon. Actually, I was in the Colour of Always anthology, which has been very amazingly picked up by A Wave Blue World, and that's I think that's in previews either now or like very, very soon.
I've been keeping an eye on that. I really want to get a copy of that.
It's a beautiful book. I mean, when I was at Thought Bubble, it was the thing that sold the quickest. I only had like 5 or maybe more copies, but it sold really quickly. It's gorgeous. Everybody in it is wonderful. To have so many queer voices.
Yeah, exactly.
It's brilliant, and it was one. I think I was on that with my writer, Mario, and I think it felt like my first big thing. It's my first Kickstarter thing, and watching it all go up was brilliant. And then one of the editors is Michelle, and she just worked her socks off to get that up. She worked like it's like she didn't stop, and she got it picked up, and she got it published for everyone, because she wanted everybody else to be able to say, I've got a published book.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's just wonderful. I have I also have loads of covers for stuff, but I said that's each individual, and some of them are kickstarted, some of them are published.
Yep.
And they'll just be what they are. But I'm really, really excited for this year. I'm going to try and do another convention, and I want to do Thought Bubble again, because it was amazing.
One day
it's going to be a really cool year.
Yeah, you've got so much cool stuff ahead of you this year, and I definitely want to get the Claims Adjuster and a copy of the Colour Always. I think Robin's really going to enjoy the Colour Always.
I hope so.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see. And of course, as soon as this is maybe a little hint for everyone in the audience here. If you want to make this happen, you can always just head over to my Ko-fi and help out a little bit. But I've got a short story that I'm working on, and Laura's waiting in the wings for me to be able to afford rates. So help me help you read a good comic, because as soon as I've got the money, I'm going to start paying Laura's page rates to help make the Scarlet Horror, and you're going to have to wait and find out what that is. But it's going to be really cool when we can eventually make it.
That's what comics is at this moment, isn't it? For most people, it's like I have this idea and I have this. There's so many people that I've like talked to, whether it's like they've given me something, I've drawn like it's just a friend's thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I've drawn like 2 pages of it, and then I came up with an idea for a book, and I'm not a writer, so then like they were writing it, and I did that. And then I was doing another thing, and it's so much of like this is really cool when we'll get to it, and it's gonna be like 2 years,
Yeah,
but it's
exactly.
gonna be cool.
Exactly. And that was like, yeah, that's how the high cost of living came out last year, because I showed Adam the webtoon call to action content, and he's like, let's do it. Yeah, let's just go for it. Because we originally pitched it for From the Static from Band of Bards.
Ah, yes, yeah.
No, sorry, not From the Static, Monstrosities from Warden Comics. And
Okay.
we didn't get into that one, and we wanted to do it anyway, but I was just going to wait until I could afford his rates. And then that contest came up, and he's like, "Nah, let's do it for this. Let's just smash it out." And so we did that last year, and it's out in the world now. But yeah, now I've got like 3 or 4 other short stories that I'm trying to save up for, so I can pay some collaborators, because I really want to get them made with very specific people. And this one with you
Yeah.
is one of those. But enough rambling. Where can everybody
Okay,
find
cool.
you?
So everyone can find me pretty much under the same handle anywhere, really, which is the Laura Straits, and that's Twitter, and that's Instagram, that's Tumblr, or Hive. I don't really use Hive because it's not really that great, but that's pretty much all of them. Or if you're on my Twitter or any of those, on the link tree, there's also my email and my website. And it's all in the same place now.
Awesome. And of course, to add to that, Laurz is hanging out in the Discord, and there's a link to the Brainbeast Studios Discord if you want to come and chat about the books that we've talked about on the show in the description below. We've got a No Capes discussion channel in there, so if you want to talk about the books that we've covered, or there's a book that you want to see us cover, jump on in the Discord and let me know, and I can line that up. So there's a link to all of Laura's social media in the description below, and a link to those books is in the description below if I've got a link available yet. As soon as it's there, as that link is available for any of Laura's books, it'll go into that description below for you. And of course, if you want to support the show, consider pledging on Ko-fi. I don't really have a Patreon anymore. That was a bit too much work. It was a bit too much stress. So I've got the more easy-going Ko-fi. Or you can check out my Throne wish list, which is full of work gear that I need to make the show and to keep making comics. And help me out with that. And of course, it's at No Capes Show on all social media. So this has been the amazing Laura Helsby. I have been Sean Sunday, and this has been No Capes, the show where we talk about creator-owned comics with creators who own comics. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell people about it, listen to it on Spotify, give us a review on Spotify. That would be aces. But until then, I'll see you next week.